The arrival of the Eater and Dueling 29 engines at the end of the 1940s changed 5cc racing in the UK completely, particularly when Ian Moore came up with the design for his number 7 car that we see here. Very simple layout, spur drive, a beaten metal pan and a beaten metal top. In the hands of his wife Ivy, it won numerous open competitions and broke British records throughout the 1950s and onwards. The major problem with the Moore car that relied on having the facilities and abilities to beat out a pan and body in aluminium sheet. So in 1951, Paul Zier of ZN Motors came up with his own commercial car, very similar in layout, but with a pressed aluminium pan, pressed aluminium top, all welded together. This was very successful because it could be bought ready to run or as a kit of parts for home assembly. This was the first 5cc car in Britain to exceed 100 miles an hour with Tom pressed. However, there was a problem with it, inasmuch as with the tether arm on the side, unless there was substantial reinforcement, there used to be movement between the engine and the bridle, and the pans would actually split. We've seen several where the top and bottom are completely split through. To address this, John Goodall undertook to make a range of replacement pans and bodies out of thicker gauge aluminium to enable people to build new cars that could be run safely and regularly without any fear of damage. This is the one I've just completed using one of his pan and body sets. You'll notice that it's got modern tyres and wheels, again because of the problems with running old stuff. The potential for these cars is over 100 miles an hour, so they need to be entirely safe. I've changed the design slightly in as much as now the cars run clockwise, which makes it a lot easier to get the fuel supply to the rear engine or the rear venturi on the engine. I've also put in a much longer and more rigid tail skid rather than the piece of wire that they used to use, which were quite dangerous because they got sharp, plus they would also bend. The pans on these cars are much thicker, so there should be no danger with them splitting in the short term. I've also fitted fairly standard front suspension, which is damped to take out some of the lumps and bumps. The original cars just had a piece of spring steel which gave some sort of spring, but also made them very bouncy. The weakest point of the ZN was actually the attachment of the tether bracket, which enabled the engine and the tether bracket to move relative to each other, so the pan would split right from side to side here. So for this one I've put a block right through the bottom of the pan, bolted to that. Everything else is fairly standard. A fuel cut-off, remote glow lead, and hopefully it will run.